What's up, guys? Today, I brought you a beautiful Roman history story. Today's topic is Rome, most disturbing love tale. So let S get to the story. Picture this! You're walking through the crowded streets of ancient Rome in the year 67 AD. The smell of roasted meats and incense hangs in the air. Vendors are shouting, and senators in white togas glide past. Suddenly, the crowd parts. Everyone bows their heads, whispering nervously. It's the emperor himself, Nero. He walks proudly through the forum with a striking young woman at his side, draped in silks and jewels. But the whispers are about her. Because everyone knows the chilling truth. The woman at Nero's side was not born a woman at all. Her name was... And what happened to him is one of the darkest, most disturbing stories of power, obsession, and cruelty in all of history. Today, I'm going to tell you that story. And I promise, it's one you'll never forget. Now, before we get to Sporus, let's talk about the man who shaped his fate. Nero. When Nero first became emperor at just 16 years old, Rome actually had high hopes. He lowered taxes, gave money back to the people, and even performed in plays and concerts, something unheard of for an emperor. For a brief moment, people thought, maybe this is the golden age. But absolute power is poison. And within a few years, Nero's mind began to unravel. He became paranoid, violent, and consumed by his own image. He wanted to be adored, worshipped, remembered forever. And to do that, he believed he needed one thing above all. Love that was total, unconditional, and eternal. And then he met Poppaea, Sabina. Poppaea was stunning, charismatic, witty, ambitious. Everything Nero thought he wanted. There was just one problem. He was already married to Octavia, the daughter of the previous emperor. But that didn't stop him. He divorced Octavia, married Poppaea in a massive ceremony, and showered her with wealth. But Nero's love wasn't. Love, it was obsession. He watched her constantly. He isolated her from friends. He had artists sculpt her face into marble, painters capture her likeness again and again. He wanted her image everywhere, as if the more he surrounded himself with her, the more control he had. But here's the thing about Poppaea. She wasn't submissive. She challenged him. She argued with him. And in a world where everyone bowed to Nero, that was dangerous. One day in 65 AD, during a heated argument, Nero snapped. He struck his pregnant wife with such force that she collapsed. She never got back up. Poppaea and their unborn child were dead. For Nero, it was a moment of horror. He had destroyed the one person he loved most. And instead of facing reality, his mind broke completely. He refused to burn her body like Roman tradition demanded. Instead, he embalmed her, built her a tomb more lavish than any emperor before her, and ordered the entire court to act as though she was still alive. At banquets, they had to set out her favorite chair. They had to speak of her in the present tense. Nero himself would spend hours talking to her embalmed body, commanding her to live, as if even death had to obey him. And it was in this madness that Sporus entered the story. Sporus was a teenager, maybe 14 or 15, who grew up in the imperial household. He had been born a slave, freed as a child, and trained in administration. He wasn't powerful, he wasn't famous, but he had one thing Nero couldn't ignore. He looked almost exactly like Poppaea. The delicate features, the eyes, the resemblance was eerie. The first time Nero saw him, something clicked in his broken mind. Here, standing before him, was his chance to undo the past, to bring Poppaea back to life. But there was a problem. Sporus was male. For Nero, though, that wasn't an obstacle. He was emperor. He was a god in his own mind. And so, he ordered surgeons to do the unthinkable. They operated on Sporus, permanently altering his body to make him appear more feminine. It was painful, brutal, dangerous. But Sporus survived. And once he healed, Nero declared something that shocked even the jaded Roman elite. He was going to marry him. The palace erupted in preparation. Seamstresses made gowns to fit Sporus's altered body. Jewelers crafted ornaments, many of them once belonging to Poppaea herself. Hairdressers styled him in the latest fashions. Tutors taught him how to walk, sit, and speak like a woman. And then came the name. Nero renamed him Sabina Poppaea's name. In the spring of 67 AD, Nero staged a grand wedding in the imperial palace. Thousands of oil lamps lit the hall. Musicians played, servants poured wine. And before the eyes of Rome's most powerful men, Nero, emperor of the world's greatest empire, a teenage boy forced to play the role of his dead wife. Every ritual was performed, vows, hand-holding, sacred bread, legal documents. To the outside world, it looked like an imperial wedding. But everyone in that room knew what it really was. A grotesque performance. And yet, Nero demanded they all play along. From that day forward, Sporus lived as the Empress of Rome. Sporus was given his own staff, his own palace quarters, even his own retinue. But the luxury was a cage. He had to act like Poppaea at all times, speaking, and even reminiscing about events that had never happened, because Nero expected him to remember. Imagine that, every day, waking up in rooms decorated with portraits of a woman you were forced to replace. Looking in the mirror and seeing not yourself, but a version of someone else. Having to fake memories of a marriage you never lived just to survive. For 2 years, Sporus played the role of empress, and he played it well. Ancient writers say he became incredibly skilled at anticipating Nero's moods, knowing exactly what to say and do to keep him calm. But inside, he grew quieter, more withdrawn. His true identity was gone, buried under layers of makeup, clothing, and lies. In 68 AD, Nero's reign collapsed. Rebellions broke out across the empire. The Senate declared him an enemy of the state. Even his own guards abandoned him. When Nero fled Rome, Sporus was still at his side. Imagine that! Even as the empire crumbled, Nero clung to his empress. But Nero's end came quickly. Surrounded in a villa outside the city, he took his own life. With his death, Sporus' nightmare didn't end it, only got worse. Sporus was now infamous, a living symbol of Nero's madness. And in Rome, symbols were dangerous. He was passed from one new ruler to another, each treating him the same way Nero had, dressing him as a woman, calling him Sabina, using him as a grotesque reminder of the empire's most infamous love story. Finally, under the Emperor Vitellius, his fate reached its most tragic point. Vitellius announced he would use Sporus in the Colosseum as entertainment. He wanted Sporus to act out a mythological scene, a young woman violated and humiliated before thousands of spectators. For Sporus, this was the final straw. After years of being controlled, reshaped, and paraded as someone he wasn't, he made one final choice. Rather than face that humiliation, Sporus took his own life. He was maybe 20 years old. And just like that, Sporus was gone. His story haunted ancient writers, but not because they felt pity for him. To them, he was just a symbol of Nero's excess. But when you look closer, you see something else. You see a boy who never got to be himself. A boy forced into a role he didn't choose, trapped in someone else's fantasy, until death was his only escape. It's easy to talk about emperors and battles and empires. But history isn't just about the powerful. It's about the human beings who lived and suffered. Sporus reminds us that behind every grand story of Rome, there are lives erased, identities destroyed, and voices silenced. In the end, Sporus' death was both tragedy and rebellion. His final act of defiance was the only way he could reclaim what had been denied him all along. The right to choose his own fate. And that's why his story still matters 2,000 years later. If you found this story chilling but fascinating, make sure to hit that like button so more people can discover it. And subscribe for more forgotten stories from History Darts. Strange and true. Tell me in the comments! What do you think? Was Sporus a victim, a survivor, or both? I'd love to hear your thoughts! Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, history isn't just about kings and empires. It's about the people who lived in their shadows.